You're watching Community Producers. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. We are in Powell River. I'm here with an author. One book he has written, Deserting to Canada, Living Underground, 1969 to 1973. And his latest book, Losing My Country, Keeping My Soul. And that is his newest book. And joining me now, Mr. Alan Glass, author of these two books. Alan, how are you today?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Excellent. What was the motivation for writing the books?
Well, when I was involved in the first book, Losing My Country, Keeping My Soul, I went through changes that I didn't see coming. And that was because I was going to college during the Vietnam War. And without notice, I was suddenly drafted into the Army.
Right.
I argued up and down saying that I was a student and that I was deferred from serving. But they would not have anything to do with that. So they drafted me into the U.S. Army in 1968. Now, the story is more or less what I went through during that time, going through the training and seeing what 18-year-olds, because I was 20 at the time, I saw the difference in the different classes of people that were going through training. And I would always tell myself that the war was wrong and that I was never going to go. But in my way of thinking, I decided to take things as they were coming, go through the training, and then hopefully the war would end, which it never did.
Right. So the motivation, though, for writing the book was a chance to tell your story.
It is a true story, and the different phases that I went through, once I decided to say no, I'm not going, that was the cause for a year of being a fugitive.
Right.
And trying to stay one step ahead of the law at the time.
And what did it feel like when you finally made it over the border?
That was by chance. We came across, me and another fellow GI that I met in San Francisco, and we had decided to not go through any border crossing. So the way we came up was a most unusual way, and I think the readers will enjoy getting to that point in the book where they find out finally how I did come into Canada.
But what did that feel for you when you stepped across the border and landed on Canadian soil?
I actually had to hold my excitement in check because of the situation that we were faced with.
So at what point were you able to actually express your emotion?
Well, the two of us, when we came up, we ran into a logging camp in the bush, in the wilderness. And when we talked to the person in charge, he told us that even though you're in Canada, because we did not know at the time that we were in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yep.
This is a wilderness place, which I will not tell.
Yeah.
But it was a matter of, we knew we were close to being in Canada, but we weren't sure. So when he told us that it was an American logging camp, but it was in Canada, we had to act like we were Canadians, lost in the woods kind of thing, that we had gone for a hike, and now we were trying to make our way back to the nearest road.
Right. Okay. So when did you start writing the first book, which is actually the second part?
The Losing My Country is the first book, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you wrote this first?
Yes, this takes place in the States.
Okay.
And it does include my training for Vietnam.
Right. So when did you start writing it, though, is what I'm trying to get at.
When I got my first computer, back in 2004, 2003.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it took you 50 years to get to it.
It took a long time.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was because I didn't know if it should be done to start with.
Right.
I mean, I would tell my story to friends,
Yeah.
and they kept telling me, you should write a book.
Yeah.
And I said, well, at the time, this was before computers, 1969, I was looking for some people to write the book for me.
Right.
And while I was in Vancouver, every chance I got to meet somebody who had anything to do with writing or
Yeah.
literature, I would ask them if they were interested in writing a book, being a ghostwriter type of thing.
So you started writing it in 2004, and then when did you start the second one?
The second one was 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was a gap between the two,
Yeah.
and the reason being was that when you want to write your memoir, you're not sure if it's going to be even wanted by the public.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, there's an old saying by, I think his name is Cyril Connolly, who was the editor of the San Francisco Chronicle back in the 1930s. And he said, it is better to write for oneself and have no public than to write for the public and have no self. So you wrote these to tell your story
Yes.
to yourself so that you would have a record of it. And anyone who would like to purchase it, they can get them at any of the usual places, but if they wanted a direct copy from you, they could contact you.
They can contact me at my email address,
Okay.
alglass@live.ca.
Okay. So that's Al, A-L.
A-L,
Yeah.
glass, G-L-A-S-S, @live.ca.
Okay. When you finally finished and you were done and you had sent it off, what did that feel like?
It felt like I had finally accomplished what I wanted to do, but at first I didn't know how to do it. And I struggled at first, not with the story because that was in my data bank.
Yeah.
And so it was a matter of forcing myself to sit down every day and spend 4 or 5 hours
Yeah.
putting all my thoughts.
So when you finished and it was all done, what was the first thing you did?
I had to go looking for somebody to put it into print, right? So it was
Right.
a matter
No, but
of...
what did you do? Did you open a bottle of wine? Did you open a bottle of scotch? Did you
Oh,
have
no.
pancakes
Oh,
and
no.
strawberries? Like, how did
No.
you celebrate the fact that you'd accomplished writing your book?
I probably didn't do much. It was more or less just sit back in my chair and say, I finally completed what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, if anybody would like a copy of either book, both look to be absolutely fascinating. And as you heard Al mention earlier, there's a couple of cliffhangers about how he actually made it across the border. So a little bit of a mystery in there. You can pick them up at Amazon or Google or any of the bookstores. But if you'd like a copy directly from Al, just email him and he will send you a copy. Right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, congratulations on the 2 books.
Thank you.
And you're watching Community Producers. Stay right where you are.